You can see how it looks like in other coronal or sagittal views, and appreciate the structure before you proceed. So once you're happy, press confirm, and it will take you to this window of the left ventricle and the left atrium. So it has already found the apex and created a center line through your left ventricle. The next thing is to place your landmarks. So as you see on the right hand side, you need to place 2 dots. So what first dot is between the pulmonary ridge and the LAA, and the second dot should be around your circumflex. So you need to put 2 dots, which will create a base for the next set of measurements. So you just need to place 2 dots, one between your pulmonary ridge and your LAA, the next near your circumflex. So if you press on your top right viewport, if you press left mouse click and move your mouse up and down, you can scroll through the different views. Now I can see the pulmonary ridge, and I'll place a dot here. I'll just scroll and find my circumflex somewhere around here. So I'll press 2 dots, one between the pulmonary ridge and LA and the other near the circumflex. So once you place your dots, press next. And based on the 2 dots that you just placed, it will create a ring around your LA, as you can see. So based on the placement of your 2 dots, you will have a ring around your LA, the purple ring. So the next step is to, so this is the cross-sectional view of the ring, the purple ring, and the double oblique view here you can see. And the red corresponds to red here, and the green corresponds to this green line here. The next step is to make sure this purple ring is placed right at the LAA ostium. So you can move these lines just to make sure the ostium, the cross-sectional view lies at the LAA ostium. You can use both of these viewports. And making sure the angle between the LA and this horizontal line is both the angles is about the same. So once you're happy with the placement of the ostium, there's a option to click on here, and then it will measure the ostium that you just created. You have these dimensions, min, max, area, and perimeter. Next step is you can measure the working length of the LAA. So you can find out the length of the LAA. So there's 2 ways you can do that. It depends on what device you're using, whether you're using a Watchman or Abbott Amulet, which device you're using, depends on what working length you want to use. So if you want to measure the linear length, you can use this scale, press a dot, and measure your working length from here. LA length, it will be added to report. Or if you want to use the maximum length from the ostium to here, you can use this curved marker, curved measurement option. Double click and it will be your LA length, and it will be added to the report, like ostium measurements, and your LA length will be added to the report. So if you're using a watchman, you probably would want to measure a little bit, maybe 10 to 12 uh, centimeter off the LA ostium, so you can have a second measurement of the LA ostium, probably 10 millimeter up from here. As a landing zone. So this is the second landing zone that you can measure for watchman, and make sure the angle aligns with the anatomy of the LA is perpendicular. So once you're happy, just press on this green, and it will give you the dimensions of that ostium. You can also measure the LAA to mitral distance. So if you scroll down, you can measure the LA to mitral distance, use a ruler measurement, and record it like LA to mitral. And if you want any other measurements, like the scroll through the whole of the LA structure, you can create a center line by using the center line function on your right. Press the center line pencil, and you can create a center line through your LA structure. Press a couple of dots, right click, and draw, and it will automatically detect the center line through your LA. Just keep on putting on the dots until you reach the end. So this is your center line through the whole of the LA, and you can check if you are centered or not. Once you're happy with the center line, confirm. That's your center line, and you can measure the distance from the ostium to the center. Set through the center line, you can have place markers and measure the length of the whole center line as well. If you can scroll center line and add a marker. Add a marker here. So the distance between the ostium and the top of the LA is 57.2. So you can measure the distance, or you can measure the distance from anywhere along the center line. So if you move the marker, it will measure the distance accordingly. Now, if you use a snare loop device, like from outside the LA, and use a snare, you can also measure the dimension of what snare loop you can utilize. So the white is the snare loop that if you're using a snare loop, you can see what size of snare loop you require, and but I don't think you're using a snare loop. So you can see what dimensions of snare loop you require, and you can do that as well. Next, you can place the virtual device. So if you're using amulet or a watchman, the plug device refers to a watchman, and plug flex to watchman flex. Disk device is the Abbott amulet. So if you're using Abbott or watchman, you can choose which device you want to use. Let's go with uh, this is similar to amulet, like a disk and a lobe. and you can change the position of the device and place it at the ostium or the landing zone, depending upon what device you're using. Or so if you're happy with the placement, you can go next, or you can also use your own import if you have a STL file from a different vendor. If you're using a different company LA closer device, you can ask for the STL file and you can import that valve. The closing device here. Next, you can see once you have the virtual device placed here, you can see how it fits into the LA plug, like in the center line, how it looks like within the LA structure. You can see the NG view, how it looks like. You can check the optimal C-arm angle, change your view just to have LA, or change the contrast and see, and record the C-arm angles for different views. If you like this view, you can choose it. You can have different views to appreciate how the valve looks like within the LA. And don't forget to take a screenshot. If you are happy with any of the views, just take a screenshot to put in the report. If you want this screenshot, put it in the report. Yeah, that's how you plan for the LA device. And then now we can see how we can plan your septal crossing to put the LA device. Do you have any questions? Or so what sort of device do you use? Do you use Watchman, Amulet, or any other device? Watchman, Amulet, and Watchman. Okay. So, so this is the Amulet. So you can also put a watchman in. For the watchman, you don't need to define the ostium, just the landing zone, probably around the circumflex, probably 10 millimeter off the ostium. And the process is all the same for watchman as well. So once you do that, you can go to the septal crossing part. Is it similar to what we did yesterday with the mitral? You can do the septum assessment, and it will come up with this view, the rings that we just did, the center line, and you can define a septum contour. Just find the fossa ovalis. On both the views. And once you're happy, next, define septum contour and place the dots 8 times to make sure you have a septum. So you got a septum contour. I'm happy with that. Confirm. So you have a septum contour and the LA ostium rings. And then you can see the septum angle from here. And you can define the vena cava like we did yesterday. So superior vena cava, you need to do it for 2 slices. and inferior. Probably the contrast is not right for the inferior, but we can define the orifice for the inferior. And once you've done that, you can visualize how the IVC looks like. And you can create a catheter. Catheter can be of any size. You can change the size, or you can choose how it bends, what the angle is. You can edit the length, or you can use this function that is optimized the landing zone or the end of the center line. You can have a virtual valve to see how it looks like. And just play around with the optimal angle of that you can use. Once you're happy, you can take a screenshot and take all the measurements that will be saved in your report. And everything that you take a screenshot will come up here in the report. You can also visualize the catheter in these views. Let's see how it looks like. Any questions on this? If not, I can go to the TE planning as well. It's similar to what we did yesterday as well. You plan your TE. Need to define the esophagus first. Once you've defined the esophagus, the transducer angles, you can change different views, different configuration of the transducer here. I can visualize the device and see what the optimum TE angles would be like, and take a screenshot of the views. Unfortunately, this cannot be taken screenshot. This angles, you have to record it somewhere, and this will be helpful when you plan your TE during the procedure, and everything will be in the report. Any questions? No? Yeah. All right. So this is the LA. So it's really probably easier than the mitral and other plannings. If you don't have any questions, we'll wait for Nathan, who will be here to do the pulmonary, probably in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ravi.
No worries.
Xíu nên anh lại làm xong nó diễn rớt cái gì thì em được quan về thì em chưa làm được, chưa có ai báo cáo thì để chuyên môn thì không lấy chẳng tế thì chắc là có nhưng mới chỉ là không đến khi ta dùng cực em người ta vẽ kích thước đúng không, hay là kích thước của từng cái van nó đã có cái van thì có một cái link, có cái van có có theo thì bên này là làm việc với cả cái lấy số rồi mình chọn ở trên cái list của mình được vẽ có một cái set. Còn là nếu như mà chưa cập nhật thì gửi mọi người import thì là các bạn ví dụ bạn anh để ép vào là từ một cái list của sẵn vẽ nhưng cỡ bao nhiêu số trên đấy theo hành kích thước của kiểu như gì mình đo mình thấy nó 30 mà thấy này nó có cái 37 hoặc 32 mình phải chọn cái mình nó có 30 rồi thì mình phải chọn cái 32 chứ đâu có cách nào đâu kêu con cái thì bây giờ mình có nguy cơ nó thủng nó vỡ thì là cái này thì sẽ lập kế hoạch chi tiết mình chuẩn bị kỹ không thì nếu mà nó lớn thì chụp mình chụp lớn nó thôi rồi mà ý nó lúc đó mình bắt đầu mình rút dụng cụ ra thì nó bớt phát trên nó mới rớt nó không về được là mình phải vẫn còn giữ đó dạ đúng cái chụp từ nó rồi chứ còn mình cắt chỉ rồi tự nhiên mình phải kéo được khoan cổ không qua trang cắt ra không ra xem vậy là chờ cái ông tỉnh mình khỏi ông tỉnh sẽ không hôm qua ông dậy sớm ông dụi mắt vừa mọi người nghe vấn đề nhiều đâu quá tỉnh hôm nay tỉnh mà không xui không để đâu mấy phút đợi ông này
Hi Nathan, I just done with the layer, so you can start with the preliminary. Yeah.
Let's do this. Do you see my screen now?
yeah.
Super. Just a sec, 3MENSION is loading. So today we'll be looking at preliminary. After, of course, you already looked at the LAA module. So I'll just start with opening a case and then selecting the pulmonary valve module. This is the 3MENSION pulmonary valve module, and the first step, as can be seen on the right side of the screen, is to click once on the pulmonary trunk. Doing this will automatically segment out the pulmonary trunk, and sometimes, depending on the contrast in the aorta, for example, there will be some other structures present as well. But after we place 4 landmarks to place our center line, so the first one all the way down into the RVUT, then one just below the bifurcation point, and then 2 more clicks in the pulmonary arteries. Just based on the center line, this initial segmentation will still be updated to then only include the pulmonary trunk, as you can see here. If we look at this image for a moment, we can see that there are 3 center lines, a blue shared center line, and then 2 yellow artery center lines. The general idea of this central center line is that we can accurately measure to the pulmonary roof, and then the 2 shared center lines are there, so we can still have an accurate center line into both arteries. What we're going to do is check all center lines. In theory, we want the blue center line to exit exactly in the pulmonary roof, so we can just drag and drop the dot until it's in the middle. And of course, we can spin around to check whether we're nicely centered in the other views as well. At any point, we can drop in additional dots or remove dots as we see fit. Right mouse click, delete. And once we're happy with the first center line, we can then continue to the artery center lines as well, which I'm already happy about. This one. After checking the center lines, let's move to the right side of the screen for a moment. On the right side here, we can click the separate ES/ED button. When treating the pulmonary valve, it's always quite important to size on both ED and ES, and that is because the length change of the pulmonary route mainly is quite severe during the heart cycle. For both the end systolic as well as the end diastolic, you can see that a phase is locked in. We can change those here at the bottom by clicking on a different phase in the phase diagram. And then we just repeat the previous steps for ED as well, in which we want the blue center line to leave through the roof of the anatomy, and we want to be nice and centered in the rest of the anatomy. So checking the blue center line, we can again check the yellow center lines, which seems to be all right. Yeah. If there's a bit less contrast in the pulmonary, sometimes the initial segmentation might not be satisfactory, and then there's also the option to recompute the segmentation, or if the aorta is still in view, then you can press the remove aorta button, and those should solve the issue. Let's confirm for now and then go into the main pulmonary workflow. The bottom two views are long axis views of the pulmonary trunk. In this case, depending on which center line we'll select, we'll see different stretch views of different center lines. Apart from that, a snake view is available in which we can appreciate the curvature of the anatomy as well, and a double oblique MPR or volume rendering view. The top left image is the perpendicular plane, always perpendicular to the selected center line. So at the moment we've got the blue center line selected, and I can just scroll over that one, and then you see we'll also exit via the roof of the anatomy. Then we've got a volume rendering view in which we can appreciate the anatomy as well. Apart from that, a dim background, volume rendering view, heart and calcifications view are available. But in the pulmonary trunk module, we also have a curved sculpt available in which we cut the pulmonary trunk in half basically and open up the anatomy in that way, which might still give you a bit more insight on the pulmonary trunk. Sometimes the pulmonary trunk can be a very irregular structure with a combination of stenotic and stenotic portions and aneurysm portions, and that can be quite difficult sometimes to interpret, and then opening of the anatomy might help with interpreting those results. Then of course we've got a virtual angio view which can help us to plan optimal approach angles. Let's look at the pulmonary report for a moment. Different than in, for example, the aortic or the mitral workflow, the clinical workflow for pulmonary procedures is less standardized for mainly adults yet. That's why we just made a general report where you can do a lot of measurements. And then link those as you see fit, where there's room for both end systolic as well as end diastolic measurements. A couple of diameter measurements as well as length measurements. So let's just go over these. Length measurements can always be done here in the bottom viewports, diameter measurements in the top. The first diameter measurement we're going to do is the RVUT measurement, and basically we then look at this screen while we scroll up, and then we want to see the first isolated view of the RVUT here. And at that point we can just either manually draw a polygon by clicking on the polygon icon, or go for the, and in this case, adjust the automatic as well. After drawing a polygon, we perform a right mouse click, and then we can label RVUT dimensions in this case. Also note that the software automatically detects that at the moment we're measuring in ED. If we would like to switch to ES, we can click that here on the right side of the screen. Then we can measure the diameter of the valve plane, and by performing a right mouse click and then selecting polygon measurement, you can see that a polygon is plotted over the edge detection, which we can then link as mid valve. Then typically the sub and supra valve are measured as a set distance below and above the valve plane. And sometimes it helps then to place the mid valve as your baseline, to make it easier to measure at the correct heights. 10 millimeters above, and typically we measure between 10 and 20 millimeters above or below the valve plane for the sub and supra valve. So let's just go ahead and do that. Also note that here in the bottom corner we also see the distance to the valve plane. Any questions up to this point? Then the next measurement we're going to perform is the pre-bifurcation measurement. And it's basically the last circular portion of the pulmonary root before it starts dissecting. So here we can already see that the anatomy starts to be oval, starts to basically elongate. So we would like to go down to the last slice where we still have a roughly circular anatomy, which is then the pre-bifurcation. At that point, we can look in another polygon measurement as well. All measurements that can be linked to the report should always be pulmonary, so should always be polygon measurements. Then the last measurement is the mid-trunk, which is basically in the middle between the pre-bifurcation and the supra valve. Apart from these diameter measurements, which can be done in both end-systolic as well as in diastolic, we can also perform a couple of length measurements. We could do that in one of two ways. Either we perform a right mouse click and we select custom length measurement. Then we are going to measure the MP overall, so that's pre-bifurcation to RVUT. We start in the RVUT now, and then we can just go to our pre-bifurcation measurements. You can see that the measurement is then in yellow. You can perform a right mouse click to label it. And another measurement we can do is the sub to supra valve. And then the supra to pre-bifurcation. And also note that if we click on a measurement, we automatically jump to this measurement. So there are these small blue icons, also the dotted lines, which can help us to jump from measurement to measurement.
Con cá là con cá dạ.
Sorry, was that a question?
Con cá là cá dạ.
Thì có hỏi anh có câu hỏi nào anh hỏi về trang phục.
Cái này là cái cây ban mặt phổi đúng không? Cây ban mặt phổi. Tại sao lại chọn con cá bên trái? Đúng là phải chọn cái này nhận cây ban mặt phổi.
Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying, sorry. Maybe could you move closer to the microphone? Or? Were you trying to ask a question or? No?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys may not have? Hello?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, why on the CD image you choose the place of the left artery, not the right artery. See the contrast only on in the aortic, not in the pulmonary artery.
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Why you choose the face of the CT scan with the contrast in the left side, not in the right side?
This is the right side of the heart. This is the pulmonary trunk. So if we go to the CT scan, then you'll see that there is both contrast in the right as well as in the left. But at the moment we're looking at the left side of the heart. So there's contrast in both. This is just a very nice scan, but this is the left side of the heart. So this is the pulmonary trunk. Sorry, the right side of the heart. This is the pulmonary trunk. And you can indeed also see that there's contrast in the aorta.
Yes, on the DSA image is in the right side, but on the CT scan image, the contrast in the face in the left side, as I see.
So you're asking why is there also contrast in the left side of the heart, or?
Yeah, because the contrast in the left side more prominent than in the right side.
Yeah. The reason for that is that this scan is actually was actually initially made for a mitral valve replacement.
I see. Yeah.
But there's sufficient contrast to also do a pulmonary planning, and because this is one of the best pulmonary cases, but was initially made for a mitral valve replacement.
Cái hình này để chụp cho hai ba hai lá cho đẹp thôi cho các bạn hỏi luôn. Vẫn đẹp.
Any other questions? Right.
Em tưởng là khi mà đo đạc thì phải là mình nổi lên chị ạ.
Hôm nay em thôi em bảy tức là cái này là cái phần đo mạch phổi để lại là học chi này mượn cái hình để nói về cái module chứ không phải đang làm đúng theo cái đúng cái hình cho cái module này luôn, nói tại trên một cái
Tách đo là chính.
cái đo thôi.
Then when we want to either place a valve directly or first pre-stent the anatomy, typically we are at danger of compressing one of the coronaries. So for that reason, the next step in the workflow would be to trace the coronaries, which can be done by clicking on the green pencil next to coronaries. We can then just scroll down until we see the aortic root and both coronaries. We can then either automatically or manually trace the coronaries. I'll show both. So if we click automatic, we need to hover over one of the coronaries, and then you can already see the green dotted line, which we can drop in, and then we can follow the course of the coronary here. We can then label the coronary as well by clicking edit label or color. So this will, for example, we do LED, and then the circumflex as well. And if we're happy with the trace, here it jumps over into the coronary sinus. So let me just adjust that with the grow functionality. I'm now deleting the points that went into the coronary sinus and then rotating so I can see the rest of the circumflex, and then just continuing. And then you can see that after the touching point, the software can just pick up the rest of the trace itself. And then the alternative is to do it manually. With a manual definition, we can just focus our MPR view on a vessel, click on manual, and then just start clicking the center line into the anatomy. And then you still see that a center line is being formed between my dots. Any questions here?
No, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Go back to pink.
You can now also see that the coronaries are then shown on all the volume renderings as well as on the MPR views.
Thì đến trước.
Chụp hình chim hay là chụp hình
Sorry, did you have a question?
Sorry.
We can then look in both a virtual stent as well as a virtual valve. For that reason, we just switch to the double oblique view. We can click
nếu mà cái mặt bạn nó nằm chính giữa.
We can
Nào giữa.
So after clicking on the eye icon, you can see the virtual stand, which can then be repositioned by dragging and dropping the orange dot or rotating the green circle.
Cái thở kệ nó. Quên.
So at the moment, a custom stand is shown in which we can change the inflow, outflow, and middle diameters.
Teo vào. Và teo vào thì được được.
Lâu có thể đặt khi sau khi mổ. Sau khi mổ họ sẽ cắt cái lá van mạch phổi. Thì lúc đó nó thở phổi cho được.
So I can't quite understand whether you're trying to ask a question. So the sound is a bit off. And
Hoặc là phải nhắn về. Hoặc là phải nhắn về một lúc nào.
Họ đâu có giãn hay này. Giãn nhưng mà này đâu có giãn đâu, giãn mạch. Những cái vòng van hay lá thì có thể không giãn, chứ cái phổi nó giãn to.
if we place the virtual stand at the correct position and with the correct size, we can then also place a virtual valve to simulate a pre-standard valve implant. And you can then see both the valve as well as the stand also on anatomy. And this is also where then the functionality of the coronary tracing comes into view, because we can now elegantly see whether or not our stent or valve is going to compress one of our coronaries. In this case, at the origo, it doesn't really seem to be involved, but here lower, the LAD might be at risk of compression. To look at this a bit more closely, we could, for example, switch to the perpendicular view where we can see the LAD traced here and then the outline of our stent and valve geometry depicted as well. And here the stent does seem to touch the LAD, but there's also room for the LAD to move out of the way. So for this particular anatomy, the coronary setup might not be a problem. Apart from placing the virtual valve and the virtual stent and tracing the coronaries, we also have the option to give a sort of overview shot of your entire anatomy by using the polygon graph tool. When we click on the eye icon, you can choose the distal and proximal borders, and then we'll plot for you the entire anatomy in a graph form, basically, where you can see the minimum diameter, the perimeter, derived diameter, and the perimeter as well. And this is based on the automatic polygons that you can see in the top left corner.
Học quan trọng hơn.
Any questions still? Because otherwise,
Đâu Ban.
Question kìa.
No, sir. No.
all right. Because I think this sort of concludes the functionalities of the pulmonary valve workflow. So if there are no further questions, I would like to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, muốn xem cái video hay là có không tìm? Dạ vâng, em đi copy của bằng máy.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you
very much. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lem. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Raleigh. Thank you for your time.
See you. No worries. See you.
Yeah.
Right.
Cảm ơn Hoàng với Sang.
Anh nhớ record lưu lại rồi để sang tải về nhé. Các bác dặn cho các bác xin bản record.
Rồi, ok, có rồi. Anh có share với Sang.
Vâng, ok.